Councilwoman Bybee,
Here.
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Mr. Squaga, Mr. Chapman.
Here.
Okay, let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Hill, can you lead us on the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What, Mr. Squaga?
Sorry.
You only missed the pledge, you're good to go. Well,
You have to stand and do it.
Good morning. Item B, comments from the floor by the public.
No public comment at this time.
Okay, since we have no public here too. And then submitted. So move to item C, approval of the agenda for the September 25th Executive Legislative Committee meeting. Looking for a motion to accept.
Approval.
I have a motion from Mr. Chapman.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Hill. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Do I need to know that it wasn't, who wasn't on the committee, so the.
Agenda, we're on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're on the agenda.
I had that same question because nobody here except for yourself.
Except me.
But Secretary of State says, well, or agreed to say it, but we just have to say if we think they're accurate. We don't have to say we were there.
Got it.
Did it what?
You don't have to abstain if you were not at the meeting.
Oh, okay, so the agenda, we're good, all, nobody in opposition, motion carries unanimously, I can speak this morning. On item C, item D is approval of the minutes from the February 2nd, 2023 meeting. I will move to approve as I was there and I was the only member that was there, but so I can still take a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, second from Commissioner Hill. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carries unanimously. On to item E, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the CEO position, description, and salary range. Ben, do you want to set this up and then we'll turn it over to Tina?
Sure. So this morning, the committee's being asked to review the current job description, as well as the recommended salary range. I know Ms. Winter is here. Winters has gone through the job description, has some suggestions, ideas, and then they're also going to present the committee with sort of what their research has indicated would be an appropriate salary range for this position. And basically the way we're stylized today and for Thursday's board meeting, we're not asking the committee to adopt anything and make a recommendation. We're just asking the committee to give input back to Winters Group, then Winters will come to the board on Thursday and the board will sort of have an opportunity to weigh in on all this as well.
Okay. And we're really a little different, this subcommittee, like our other subcommittees. Normally, because we're advisory, we vet things and then we bring it to the board for their approval or any changes. This one, our attorneys, both attorneys, Ben and Molly, recommended that that we give input today from this committee, and that because it's such a big decision to be made, we want the whole board to know that this is a whole board decision. It's not just us vetting it and them having to approve it or not approve it. So we're a little bit different than we would be from a subcommittee perspective. So today, really, Tina and her group will have been working with Molly on going through our current job description and the CEO compensation package. And based on their work and the discovery also that they just went through last week, will give us some recommendations, and then it's open for us to give our input on what she presents today. Tina, I'm gonna let you take it away, and I don't know if you want to start with a little bit of discovery or it's yours. You go ahead and go.
Thank you, Chairman Bybee, and good morning to the committee. We appreciate the opportunity to circle back with you and provide feedback from our time on the ground. So first of all, thank you for hosting us and allowing us to come into the organization and the community to have the time to hear thoughts and reflection as you think about the new leader for RSCVA. I can tell you some of the takeaways that we had as a team, and it was Dennis Tracy and myself on the ground in Reno. The engagement from the board and the stakeholders allowed us to really have an action-packed several days on the ground there with some recurring themes. These are individuals as either board members, stakeholders that are very committed to the community and the organization. We appreciated the candor in the conversations, and we also had the opportunity to meet with the staff of the RSCVA, with individual sessions, with the senior staff, and then group sessions with the remainder of the employees. We felt like they were very appreciative of the conversation. Some of them had shared that they had never been through a process where they were able to give input and feedback related to the next president and CEO. We were very impressed with the team on the ground there. We've been to several locations around the country and just really impressed with the job that the staff is doing there. And I can tell you unanimously, feedback from the board and stakeholder community really commented on the level of talent within the staff and the accomplishments that they have had under leadership that was in place and under Mike's leadership as well. So congratulations to Mike and team for holding things together and just really delivering on the goals and objectives of the organization. So it really puts us in a good situation as we continue to move forward. There's great momentum and an opportunity to continue to bring the groups together towards the common goal of identifying the next leader. So as we looked over the job description, we really just found a couple of areas that we wanted to make some suggestions or that were noteworthy. The job description as it stands is tactically solid. There are a couple of areas based on the responsibilities of the president and CEO we feel could be a little more beefed up, I'll call it. The organization is operational in terms of the facilities management, while just like finance and sales and marketing, you've got some leaders in those categories, but we felt like there were some operational tenets that could be expanded as we look at the responsibilities associated with the 4 facilities. Also, I think in general, as a reflection for that positive momentum with bringing together the organization to find the next leader, I think we could focus more on some of the soft skills that are needed for the next president and CEO in terms of the confidence that would be needed to activate a voice for the region, as well as humble leadership. There's some things around there, and I wanted to see what your thoughts were as we go into a competitive landscape for leadership positions with tourism agencies in general across the United States. We want the job description to not be so different than some of the other ones that we see, with the addition of soft skills as well as the hard and technical skills that will be needed for this leader. Going to just pause for a minute and ask for my colleagues' input for anything that I may have missed.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dennis Tracy. I was also on ground with Tina last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago in Reno. And I think you pretty well covered it, Tina. I'm just looking at some of my notes on some of the things that we heard. A couple of questions that were asked, but I feel like I may not have come away with answers are in terms of like what you do consider as your comp cities, your competitive cities. That's some of the information that we're still working on from our end. But yeah, as far as the next CEO, I think collaborator probably was the number one word that we heard, as well as someone who wants to be there, someone who wants and has a strong commitment to living, breathing, working in Reno.
I feel like this is Stephen Oberhoff for Winter Partners. I feel like the job description was already in pretty good shape, and this is more of a good to great situation. So the recommendations, I believe, will be additive to the identification and attraction of new candidates for this position.
And the one other area just for consideration is with regards to advocacy efforts. I think that the organization does serve as an advocate for the Reno Tahoe area. I think that may be an area that we could expand the job description to ensure, well, this person will not be a lobbyist by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they will be seen as the advocate for the region from a tourism perspective, both state and nationally, as well as on the local level.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up, excuse me, to my board members, my committee members for comments or questions right now before we move forward.
I like that advocacy idea, and maybe that Reno is a great place to live, it's a great place to do business, it's a great place to visit. Using kind of language like that, I think would be good for that. And I like the facilities management piece of adding that as well to this.
Okay, Mr. Slocum?
Thank you, Tina and Dennis. I don't disagree with any. I think your recommendations are on as far as areas that we could beef up on, and also like the soft skills piece. I do have a question. I don't know if it's for this group or for yourself, but who is responsible for somewhat recrafting? Because I think Stephen's comment was when I first got the job description, I actually thought it really encompassed. There wasn't a whole lot. There were things I could tweak here and there, or maybe wordsmith, but I thought it was pretty comprehensive. I also don't know, is 4-page job description normal? It might be, I don't know. In your world of this position, it is unique. It wears a lot of hats, so maybe that is what it is, but who is responsible for kind of taking, I'm assuming we want to have a finished product Thursday, correct? Or even before that. For the board to have a shot at?
Well, I met with Molly last week and went through kind of some of my thoughts. And then Molly reached out because she's our labor attorney. So really Molly is the expert that kind of also keeps us on track for some of the legal implications of things we want to make sure, we're including or how that job description and outreach is to just keep us on board legally and just for guidance because she's been here a long time. And then she reached out to Tina. Tina had offered to help us wordsmith the job description, which I felt was very verbose, that it really 4 pages and some seemed a little repetitive to me. It was thorough for sure because it was so long, and I don't know. And a lot of things are essential in here. So maybe the layout and how you, Tina, as you recruit, how many people, they'll glance through all of this, but do you highlight and start with bullet points of, the first page or so, is good. When you get to essential duties and responsibilities, it goes on and on because there are a lot of responsibilities, and I get that. But whether that can be wordsmithed a little bit or goes after kind of our requirements, the ideal background and top characteristics, I thought were a little vague in saying what are the minimum requirements and qualifications we're looking for to kind of highlight as you're going out and someone's looking at this. I think that needs to move towards the front so that people see, what, am I even qualified? Can I even, do I not meet what their minimum requirements are and what their ideal, characteristics or background are? But listing, and I'm not sure, Tina, maybe the best, I'm sure you have a lot of these, to Stephen's point, a lot of, when you present these, what's the best format so that it's clear for the public, for our board, for our stakeholders, but for candidates to look at and really key in on. And then they can go through all of the duties and responsibilities as kind of more info so that they know what it entails. But really what we're looking for is up here. And so today, what we give Tina and her team, and then Molly will also be working, Molly and Ben will be working with them to come up with, to refine it so that Thursday we can present whatever changes they see and we recommend could bring to the board, and it will probably change again because all the board will have input on Thursday on what we accept and if we're okay with how it's stated at that time or not. So to answer that question, let me get Andy's input and then I'll go back to Tina.
Sure, again, as everybody has said, it's probably all here. I do think it is a little long in the essential duties and responsibilities. It's been, I mentioned, it just kept getting added to over time. I think, we gotta have arts and culture, so let's put something about arts and culture in there. So it does seem like that needs to be reviewed. I know there, and then the top priorities is obviously something that would have to be discussed at a board level, I would assume, because it's going to be the full board that weighs into whatever those top priorities are, because these are all older ones for sure. And many of these have already been accomplished, so to speak. I know there had been some, and I had heard from some in the community through this process that are we specifically looking for a CEO level candidate? And I don't know if we are, but I think there does need to be a little more, and maybe it's under ideal background, and that to me should be more required experience or something there. But are we looking for a C-suite level, or I think just a little bit more of what our expectation might be in that regards. And then under the one thing that I think, and probably under the soft skills that Tina, you were talking about, but it's really demonstrated success and I just wrote this, demonstrated success in complex partner relationships. Because when you look at this role and this organization's role and its breadth of kind of oversight or exposure, I mean, it comes to the lake, it goes all the way Washoe County, all the way up to the Idaho state line, and Gerlach. I've been hearing stuff about, Gerlach needs some help, and why isn't the RCPA focusing on Gerlach or anything out there? So, I think that complex relationships and understanding where they're leading and where they're leading. And I think that's important to kind of think about. Again, that might be way too verbose for this, but it really is a relationships discussion at that level, and not just relationships within the board or the staff, but other tourism organizations and other organizations. And we hit on that in a few different places, but again, it's kind of all scattered, I think, a bit.
Okay. And Tina, before I'm going to hand it back to you, there was on page 13 that take a leadership role in the promotion of the arts and cultural aspects through Grand Parks community. I don't know what that means. I mean, supporting arts and culture in the community, but taking a leadership role. Is it serving on an arts board? Is it, it's unclear here. Leadership role for the CEO, an active role on, an arts commission or council, or is it simply like all of us want to support, and we try to support arts and culture through our grants that we give, through events that happen here. The organization is obviously supportive of the art show we just had of arts and culture. But as far as the CEO goes, I don't know if that leadership role is a little vague to me, and how big does that, how big a role is that? Is there a way maybe stating it without, it sounds to me like he's, you know, he or she is supposed to be on a board or committee with one of the arts organizations, and that might not be it. I mean, but I think emphasizing what our art and culture priority is important for sure. So it was only one other little thing that I had.
Right. Okay.
Okay, Tina, what do you, let me let you jump in.
Or any other comments with regards to the job description? It seems like we're almost there, just a little fine tuning. So we can definitely do a revision and work through that to have ready for Thursday. for
Okay,
presentation.
I do have another one, Commissioner Hill.
Do we want to have that certification that I just read about? Oh my gosh. For DMOs, there's a certification
CDME, there's a couple, there's CDME.
CDME.
That's
as a plus, or, you know, one of those kind of, we don't have an education requirement on here.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming we're wanting someone with a bachelor's degree, but it's not written here, so, but I don't know if there's any of those kind of things that we wanna add. And then, I like what Andy was saying with complex relationships. I'm almost like thinking with what you're saying, Madam Chair, about the arts and culture, it probably could just be a bigger statement about managing all of these different elements that make it a great place. Reno, arts and culture, you know, economic development, all of those things.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, and actually I brought up with Molly, the education piece, and I talked to Tina and Dennis about it. And they said generally, a lot of times minimum requirements are a bachelor's degree with the preference for, you know, for an advanced degree if they have them. Molly said, that we might want to phrase it bachelor's degree or equivalent, whether it's experience, or she was worried about a bachelor's degree, being a barrier that we might set. And you know, so Tina, what do you see? And I think you told me normally a bachelor's degree is pretty common. What do you guys see in the searches that you're doing?
We see that as typically the bare minimum requirement, and that a certification and or an advanced degree is preferred.
Okay, to Andy's point about a CEO, is that something, I know that's a bigger board decision.
Well, it actually says it in here on page 14, must have proven, I just saw that, must have proven track record as a CEO. So I don't know, I mean, CEO or equivalent, I don't know if that necessarily works in that, or CEO or, you know, VP suite level or something, or they have, again, I did hear, we have to have that CEO from some other destination, that limiting us at all.
Well, and Tina, you had thrown out to me too, does it have to be, and to your point, if it's a CEO, can they come from another, public sector or other experience? It's not necessarily a DMO that isn't travel and hospitality and tourism, but comes in with really strong leadership and CEO traits, that has a staff here that's expertise you depend on for, you know, what we need in this space. And have you placed people into an organization that maybe weren't travel, but came in with such strong characteristics that you depend on your team here that does have that expertise? Is that something you do, or what do you see?
That's something that we have a history of doing. It's not it's probably about 10% of the leaders that we place. They have more local experience, or something that is closely associated, where the value proposition for their candidacy is supported by leaning on a strong team like you have there. I think that could be a successful proposition.
Stephen, did you have?
And also,
Go ahead, I'm
Go,
sorry.
Tina.
Go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Also, I think we would want to consider someone who has not been a CEO. I know you have a big organization there. But we do kind of want to test the tolerance or the openness to looking at candidates who have not been a CEO. There are many times where someone who is a number two in a position or in an organization will do what we call be a step-up candidate to take that leadership role.
Okay.
Yeah, to build on that and Andy's comment, I'm not as comfortable with making it a requirement of saying you have a track record as a CEO. I think the C-suite or leadership experience or
Right.
however we want to
Mhm.
craft it, but I think it really limits us. And I think think there's candidates out there that may not. The other thing I'd say is there are those that have had a CEO title with an organization that is not really the CEO level we're looking at. And just because you had the CEO title, to me, doesn't always equate. So I'd almost rather be more broad and then let the process, yeah, I kind of feel that way with education, even though I like the idea of having some level of minimum. You know what, the search process will vet that out too. So anyway, I personally would kind of like to see that removed actually, is saying you have to have a true proven track record as a CEO.
So maybe a proven leadership record.
Yeah.
The leadership is-
We even,
Yeah.
however we want to,
Yeah.
or I would defer Tina to maybe you and your team, how you craft that, but I think you know what we're getting at.
Andy, anymore?
Just to reiterate on the essential duties and responsibilities and going through that and shortening them, combining them, there's a lot of duplication. I think again, over time, it's just been added to. I mean, there are, and I can't even count that high, there's so many there, but. So that'll be good to kind of, and what are the key components that we're really looking at that this person can be driving, they're not necessarily, what's the one that I saw? Prepare or direct the preparation of official publications of the RCVA, such as digital assets, pamphlets, and social media. I hope our CEO is not doing that.
Right. Yeah, because
I
again,
hope their
it's,
staff.
yeah, it's leading the staff that's doing that. So really, we don't want someone who is a micromanager who's coming in trying to do everything. We want them to be able to work with our team. I think that collaborative is a word I've heard over and over, a collaborator. And really on the characteristics, again, I don't like the ideal background and top characteristics. I want those moved towards the front, whether it's skills, whether it's minimum requirements, however you want to word that. I kind of want those front and center and then all the responsibilities and duties after that. And the top characteristics really are the soft skills, which I think are super important. I think I told you guys, and I did when you were here, how important the soft skills will be in the collaboration aspect, given the history we've had. How do we find someone who really works well with everybody and really keeps this organization moving forward as we are, but works well with people and they want to work for him or her to do that and change the narrative that we've had in the past. And a lot of people can come in with the hard skills in the background, but for me, the soft skills and that teamwork and collaborator for me is like number one of really bringing everyone together to the table. Commissioner Hill.
On the fourth bullet on ideal background, it does say 10 years of proven successful leadership experience. So maybe we want to stick with that and or, degree certification. I don't know, that certification sounds legit, but and I agree that there is some contradictory things in this list. So hopefully we can clean that up. the list under essential duties. And then are we pulling out top priorities fully?
That would be something we can discuss right now. We, obviously, the first one is because this was written, Charles came on board November 2020, so COVID, we were in the middle of COVID. So the first bullet point absolutely is gone.
Third bullet point talks about taking over the facilities, which has happened since then.
Yeah, that's happened.
I mean, Tina, is it,
Right.
in your opinion, would this be to me, would it be okay to not have the whole top priority? Would that be the next step when you have your new CEO and you're reviewing it with that person?
Yeah, great.
Mhm.
I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. That's typically where those priorities are outlined. As you're looking at what the priorities are, we see that within the first 60 to 90 days, it's a roadmap to what you're looking for them to accomplish. And that can also be worked in with the KPIs that this president CEO would be responsible for. That is another area that we did have some lengthy discussion about with priorities and with KPIs that would be something that the president and CEO would solely be responsible for rather than team KPIs that they would be measured on and then incentivized on as well.
So we could pull those out, is what you're saying, Tina?
Yes, correct.
And Madam Chair, maybe we can attach don't we have a 5-year plan? 5-year.
Or a strategic plan, 3-year plan.
3 years, so maybe we
Mhm.
attach our 3-year plan and the most recent, what did we adopted? What was it?
We're in the second year.
But what was last meeting we adopted for the goals for the team? What were those called?
So it's basically, it's our annual.
The annual
plan.
The
Annual
annual plan, so
Yeah.
maybe we just attach those two, so at least they know what those are.
Would that'd be fine to do, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think historically, we've always made that available. So we
Yeah.
give candidates and we provide that to them before they ever get in front of the board, so they can have a chance to review it and put together some thoughts on it, so.
Of course.
Madam Chair, just a quick, I assume, Tina, that there's a kind of a destination profile that is in front of this CEO that I've seen in other searches that kind of sells the destination more than anything else. Like, hey, here's the region, here's what it's all about, here's what we're proud of, here's what we're working on. Because it kind of is that sales piece, so to speak. So I'm assuming you guys are working on that again. I know we had that before too.
Right. And we also just want to have some assistance from the team on site there to make sure that we're in line with their messaging and branding.
Okay, so you'd be working with marketing for sure and sales.
There's probably a document that existed before that we can use as a template because it has all the stuff
Yeah,
needed.
do you remember what we had for when we put out the last couple times?
I don't, but I know that, I'm certain that the search firm had what you're talking about,
I
yeah.
recall that, so,
Well, you were here, you were one of only 2 board members left on this board that were here for the last process. So 7 of us are new.
But
to
all
it.
of that will be in our board packet for Thursday for adoption, right? The full package.
So I'll tell you, historically, the board has approved the job description,
Okay,
but we haven't approved collateral materials that the search firm uses for their marketing
Okay.
purposes. So it's, I think, as I see it, sort of next steps. So Tina's group will take the input that they got at today's meeting, and Tina, we can get you a link of the video of this meeting to be able to look back. They'll sort of take a shot at revising that job description. We'd like to have that out to the board tomorrow or basically as soon as we can. And then we
Okay.
ask the board on Thursday, ready to offer specific changes if they have any, and otherwise approve that job description. So coming out of Thursday's meeting, Tina will have a board approved job description that she can move forward with on the search. That's the one part. The second part is the salary range, which we haven't gotten to yet, but
Okay.
I think that's the hope.
And then Tina, you talked about so you'll have the information you need to actually launch the search, and you talked about brochure or your material you put together for the search, and obviously you're going to put that together and we'll see that as it goes out. When you're
Absolutely.
starting.
We won't share that without it being approved.
Okay.
But I think the main thing is we want to go ahead and get the job description secured. Then we can work on the collateral piece, which we refer to as the recruitment brochure.
Oh, recruitment brochure, I couldn't think of what it was called.
Right.
Any other comments on job description? Tina, do you feel comfortable with the input we've given you today?
Yes.
Okay, and everyone else is good? Let's,
Just real quick,
Uh-huh.
Madam Chair, do
Yeah.
we, with winners, whatever they produce, does it come back to this group for a quick once over, or are we just gonna put it to the group on Thursday?
We don't have time to agendize another meeting of this committee, so she'll
So
already
it'd have to be.
you'll get it as a
It
board
could-
member.
Got it. Okay.
So the whole board will get it, because
Okay.
again, we're not even
Okay.
officially making a recommendation today on acceptance or not. We're giving our inputs separately today, and then the whole board will get it for Thursday with the opportunity for all of us
Okay.
to input on Thursday for approval of the job description. So what do we have on the compensation package and proposed, how are we wording this? Salary range, Tina, will depend on what you have. I know you've got our last CEOs, you've got comp in the industry, and I'll let you go ahead and go with what do you have as we're looking at what that range might be. And a reminder, you guys probably all know this, but I'll remind the board too, whatever salary range and compensation package we put out when Tina's going on the search is still going to be a negotiated contract. So this is X amount, and this is all we're going to offer. The whole package, compensation package and benefits will all be up for negotiation with whoever we offer the job to. This gives us a range. So go ahead, Tina, or is this Stevens?
We're actually going to let Dennis give us a little bit of background on how we came to the number. We've done some research and gotten some other comparable material as far as numbers are concerned from local markets. So Dennis, you want to give us a summary, please?
Sure. I think the key takeaway is we're pretty much right on target with where we currently stand. We've done over the years, we've done different salary compensation comparisons, and basically for this exercise, I did from 10 million and up in terms of budget range, and then I kind of focused in on 50 million and up, and I found that of those organizations that come in at the 50 million and up range, the percentage of the CEO's compensation comes in at right around 0.61%. It's kind of interesting. It's like 6.1, 6.2, 6.4. Looking at what we're currently kind of going with as far as the salary range goes for, if I put in as a $50 million organization for Reno and a compensation of, we'll say 325, that comes out at a 0.65 salary rate or a percentage of the budget. The overall average for large organizations and small organizations tends to get a little higher as the budget goes down. So as the budget decreases, the salary percentage of the budget goes up a little bit, but it's not accurate across the board. So I think that at a salary percentage of budget at 0.65, we're pretty close to the DMO salary range norm.
Can
That
we do
number again
320?
is,
I'm sorry.
so that specific number was 325?
That was the number I used. That's not the number I'm, you know, prepared to say we should pay, but that's the number I used.
Dennis is, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to-
No, go ahead.
Is that 0.65% a number you've used in the past? I mean, is that kind of?
Again, it kind
Roughly.
of depends on the budget level. You know, like, let's say if we're at the $12 million budget level, typically the price, the salary percentage of the budget is higher. It's like in the threes. So like 3.4, 3.2%.
The one thing I'm just, do you mind if I just
No.
chime in on?
Go ahead.
It ain't, I'm not, actually, I'm not falling out of the seat like, oh my God, that's way off where we should be. The only thing I was gonna say is a little, so many of these animals are different, right? Each time you look at a different DMO, I'm sure. Our revenue structure, I mean, the fact that, I mean, this thing has been built over decades, this machine with room tax, and I mean, our budget is healthy for a pretty, I don't want to say small destination, but I guess it's all relative.
Medium.
But I just, and again, I'm not saying that whatever number we're using for our, were we using like 50 million, 50 plus? I don't know, I think it's a piece of information to use. It's unique in the sense that, I mean, we're very, and I know Courtney's not here, but it seems like we're very healthy financially where we're at compared to 15 years ago when we were sitting with 140 million in debt and less revenue coming in. We're now at 55 million in debt. We're just in such a better financial position, which you can take a couple different ways. It's also less pressure on whatever this person is overseeing budgetarily, but I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling on, but it's unique in the sense that you've got this legislatively earmarked stream that's been coming in. I don't necessarily look at this position like you're just managing. Some of this 50 million is assigned how it's gonna be spent, right? There's parameters.
It is kind of
Yeah.
hard to compare apples to apples because, you know, when you look at the different destinations, one might be really heavy in leisure. One might be really heavy in meetings and conventions. You know, I tried to make it as broad as I could with East Coast, West Coast, mountains. But as we've all talked about, Reno is a little bit different animal in terms of the responsibilities of the job with the facilities and so forth. It's not just leisure, it's not just convention. It's a big mix. You know, you've got smaller destinations, like say a $30 million destination that comes in at a salary range of 7.77% of the budget, of the overall budget. You've got some others, actually a really kind of a smaller one at an $18 million budget that comes in at 3% of the budget. I know for a fact that guy's been there forever. They love him. You know, he's well paid. So, you know, it is a little hard to compare apples to apples.
I got you.
Okay, Andy?
Dennis, do we, of the 50 million comp, I mean, do you have actual destinations of who would that be? And the reason I'm asking is, and I think Stephen, you brought this up, that some of this $50 million budget of the RSCBA isn't really actionable, I would call it, because it could be the facilities cost. If you take that out, I mean, the facilities are running at a negative, but it has this huge operational cost. So the operational cost is part of that 50 million. You know, there's debt payment on that and different things like that. So it's really, what is the budget that, you know, we really have influence over? And of course, the CEO has influence over all of it, but there are some that it's like, okay, you're going to pay debt. You know, that's just the way it's going to be. So did you have specific destinations that hit in the 50 million that you can share?
I've got regions. I mean, if I'm not exactly sure what you're wanting to know. I think that if you go down to a, let's say if we went to a destination that might have a smaller budget, kind of on your scenario there, because there's, this position would have less control over flexible dollars, we'll say, or marketing dollars. Again, when you get down in the 11, 12, $16 million range, the percentage of salary goes up considerably.
Sure, but it's based off of a smaller budget, so that's what I'm just trying to fill. I mean, are we comparing ourselves to the state of New York? Are we comparing ourselves to,
I
Tri-City
kind of
Cincinnati?
tried to avoid, like, I didn't put Vegas in there. I didn't put New York in there. I can.
We tried to stay with the similar organizations that were not more than a county, because we didn't feel like those were comparable ranges. I think a range that we kept coming back to was the 300 to 350 for a base salary. That's where the 325 came as the mean, in the midpoint. Where we do feel like there should be some consideration is with regards to the bonus. We feel like the bonus, where it was with the previous CEO, was above industry average. And it should be, just recommendations in line with what the senior staff is. If I'm not mistaken, 15%, or maybe just a tad higher at 20%. But I think as we did our research bonus perspective, we were about 10% or less in terms of what we found.
Actually, it's 11.25. And again, if you take out some of those, like a 25% bonus, that's kind of high. The lowest I came across was 3.7. So the average for the bonus percentage of salary was 11%. The average for the bonus percentage for the CEO position was 13%. The sales business development percentage was 12%. The CMO 11%.
So I think that,
Yeah, so these were comparables, but then we have to look at what our current bonus structure on our senior leadership is, which is 15% for our VPs and 20% for Mr. Larraguetta in his position. So considering 15 and 20%, we really, do you have to at least do comparable, if not above, for the CEO? If we're at 20%, 15 and 20?
We really feel like that's at your discretion. We have seen CEOs that have a higher percentage or on par with the senior staff. But I think we didn't get down to the next layer, but that is taking into account parity with your other executive team, your senior staff there in terms of compensation levels. So that does factor in for the range that we were looking at.
Okay, and it is going to be a discussion because it was with Charles last a year ago when we were looking at salary versus bonus, and people really had problems with the bonus being 35%, even though we've had a previous CEO that went as high as 40 but had a lower salary. So it's kind of which, and I'm sure you see this with organizations. Do you do higher salary and lower bonus, or do you do the reverse? And I don't know which, I know it's negotiated too, but those kind of are the two. You want the carrot out there, but there is points to be made, I think, for both, whether you go higher salary, lower bonus, or you do lower salary and put that incentive there is a decision to be made. Mr. Splaga.
Yeah, I don't get as hung up. I think whoever comes into this position, once we select, is gonna have to address senior staff on down to frontline. I think everything, and again, and I don't mean I don't mean that in a threat, I'm just saying, everything from the discussion of COLAs to merit pay to bonus. Is it offered down to every individual? I think that individual is gonna have to, I don't wanna say reset, but just, all right, these are the parameters. I'm not as concerned, I mean, I've seen sales incentives exceed what because that's what you're driving. I've seen sales incentives exceed what an executive bonus is gonna be as well. I think where I had heartburn on the bonus side, and again, it had nothing to do with the individual, it was that number one, is a very big number, and you're justifying it the fiduciary side, even to our industry, but also, even though it's not coming out of the general tax, it isn't the taxpayer as in the sense of the citizen, that's a big number, and we're a public agency. I also had a hard time getting my head around the way it was worded with discretionary and the fact that there really was nothing discretionary about it. It was, you hit these targets, you get there, to me, discretionary is going, okay, this is weighted a little more. Personally, and again, I don't think we're that far off. If I were to throw what range I had in my head, and I don't know if I was coming at it, I would have said, like, don't laugh because I'm too light, but 280 to 320, and I would have done like a 10% bonus tied to goals and an extra 5% discretionary that the board, if it went above and beyond, you know what, we're going to go another 5%. Again, that's just one board member throwing it out. So I don't think we're that far off saying 325 is the median. I think the bonus discussion is going to be interesting to have because I don't think you can have every bite of the apple of something like a 35% bonus, a very well compensated salary, a COLA adjustment, and then, hey, you haven't, we haven't even talked about merit. I think there's different it's stratified. I think a frontline employee, we got to be much more diligent on getting that COLA too. Because upper management, if they're getting bonuses and merit and all that, anyway, it's more fluid, but I don't think we're that far off. I mean, I don't know what so is your range 300 to 350? Was that what you were saying, Dennis or Tina?
We're not making a suggestion, but I think based on things that we've heard, the comps that we've looked at, that's where we keep landing, is that 300 to 350.
Okay. Andy, do you have any more input before you leave? You've got it all.
I would agree with Stephen on tightening that 300 to 350 up a little bit, and shorten that range, maybe it's 300 to 325. I think that is not that the person wouldn't be well worth it, but I think that we should look at that. I like your idea about that, I'm kind of 15% kind of range with maybe enough. I was at 20, but I kind of like your uptick. So maybe I was thinking 20, and I kind of look at what other jurisdictions and destinations that I'm familiar with and how the structure from, director level to VP level to CEO level and how that range feels. So I think, that 20% feels right. How we get to the 20%, if it's 15 based on the established goals, up to, and then 5% discretionary. I like those ideas as well, but I do think the 300 to 350 seems a little rich. Just from my perspective, based on, what this organization is, when you compare it to similar organizations and take out some of the things that are driving. I think we're driving a lot of that 50 million budget, kind of, I don't want to call it falsely, but it's propped up.
Mm-hmm. And Tina, I guess honestly too, what can we get in that price range? Because if we go a little bit lower, what is the differential? No, we're looking for a quality candidate that want to stay here. So what is it going to take to get someone here? And in that range, if we're looking 325 as your median, is that reasonable to have a pretty good response to it and to get the kind of quality candidate we're looking for? And again, it'll be negotiated, but in your experience, where does that put us on a nationwide search?
I think if we have a little wider of a range, we're going to have wider of a range from a compensation perspective. We're gonna have a wider of a range for candidates. Kind of going down to another factor is cost of living. So we haven't talked about that. We've been focused on the budget, and I don't think that we dove in very deep on cost of living factors. We did a little bit on just the housing market there, which is, from what I could tell, higher than the average in the United States. So again, you want someone to come and stay, and we want to make it so that they can afford to do so.
Okay, because cost of living, obviously, we're not in the Bay Area, which is crazy, or somewhere like high, but we're not low either. So we're drawing someone, especially from locations where the cost of living is significantly lower. And will this, and I agree with you too, that's a good point on the range. If we keep the range a little broader, the 3 to 350, instead of tightening in too tight, that if that opens up the pool for us, I see that as an advantage. Not saying we're going 350, but the range being a bigger range, I think that makes sense.
It's a great
For sure.
point. Just because the range is 350 doesn't mean that you have to pay 350. It's a data point in all the other data points that we're considering as you make the decision.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we need to be competitive with salary. I'm with Steven, but
Mhm.
we're quasi, and so I'd be fine with 300 to 350. And we're looking at someone who's competitive, hopefully, because they want to come and be the best and make Reno the best. So they're going to want to see that they can move in their salary. But I love this idea of a compromise of a 15% bonus plus a 5% board bonus, if we want to do that as well.
Yeah, and I like that too. And I think too, we're talking about where we are today. And obviously, from a budgetary standpoint, depending on the economy and how we're doing, everyone all the way down from COLAs to merits to bonuses will be affected if fiscally we have to tighten our belt.
Well, and guys will tell you that we should be looking at, or the CEO should be looking at making sure that we have a resilient budget. So it's not just room tax. That should be something we task this new CEO with looking at. There's other ways to look at raising revenues for this work.
And I know that Charles,
He started that.
he's the rainy day fund.
Yeah.
That's
But he
expanded.
also got a grant from the state, and I mean, so I think there's a lot of ways to find a partner, but pull partnerships in.
Tina, on the bonus and the salary range, anything more you need to share with us? And then I'll see if my other board members have more input they want to give you. I like a lot the 15 plus discretionary 5 would put us at 20, which would be comparable right now to Mr. Lurga's 20%, and I'm good with that. And again, we're not locked into anything, and it would be negotiated at the end of the day too, but to open that door to, because we want to get as many candidates as we can too, if we're.
I mean, for the sake of having something to present to the board, I'm fine with, if we were saying 3 to 350, a bit, it's higher than I would have gone a bit, and I also am not getting hung up on just, and I don't mean to be uncomfortable with Mike here. If Mike was at 20 and the CEO was at a 15, well, that doesn't bother me as a board member, but we can discuss that at the board meeting, because
Right.
I look at the sales function,
That's hard
they're targeted to go out and hunt it.
to work.
And also this position is considerably higher from a base salary,
Yeah.
so I don't get hung up on it, but if the board's appetite is, it needs to be equal or more, that's fine.
No.
Just for clarity, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
the VP of sales position was always at 15%, the same as the other VPs in our organization. And then in Charles' second year, he wanted to give a significant stretch goal. That's the other 5%.
Right.
So the room night goal was approved by the board is 15, and then there's an additional, I think it's 10 to 15% more room nights is the additional 5%. So very similar to the concept.
You could hit it or.
You can't hit it, but it's not based on the room I quote.
So is the stretch goal would be the additional 5%? Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's good to know. And I think when we look, and Tina, we talked about in this market too, we look at other CEOs, prominent positions, and we look at EDON, and we look at the airport, and we look at city managers. A lot of those salaries are in the 300 range, which for top salaries on our cost of living, kind of, I feel good about that because that's what salaries are in comparable positions for other positions we have, leadership or CEO positions in the region.
I mean, without putting you on the spot or the bonuses in that, I'm not familiar with.
I'd have to research
Okay.
that. I can't.
Our bonus, so what is 15% of 300?
45.
45. Oh, that's a high bonus. I mean, as compared to what we do for our county manager,
Mhm.
I'm trying to think what his bonus was. Maybe it was 20,000 last go around, but
I know it's not.
it's a little different.
It is.
it's a little different, although our county manager manages a $1 billion budget.
Right.
But it's a different, and it's a very, I don't know, it's competitive. These specific, although the county manager position is competitive. So, but sales, this kind of destination marketing is a totally different beast than running in county.
Okay. Anything else, Tina or Dennis or Stephen, you want to add? I feel good about, I don't know if we have any more questions or input from this group, but I think we've given you enough, hopefully, to really look at that job description and rearrange, clean up a little bit. And I know that Ben and Molly's in court right now, or she would be here with us, but she'll be talking to you guys to go through. Do you guys need anything else from us?
I don't think so, team.
No,
No, we appreciate the feedback. Thank you. This was productive.
Okay, good.
you.
Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna go ahead and close item E. Item F, comments from committee members and or CEO or president.
So for the next exec team, do we just meet as need be?
Yeah.
Is that how it works? Because I'm wondering if it would be helpful to meet and just go over elements of the strategic plan that we want to bring to the board. Because the board's brand new and we should be spending some time on that as a board. But maybe the exec team talk about it first.
And did we bring strategic plan, was that an executive legislator?
No, I think we've always done that as a board. So we adopted the 3-year plan as a board and then.
It's not changing it. It's bringing it here and saying how we want to talk about it as a board. Bringing it to the board and discussing like the agenda, how we set that agenda as a board.
So we can, we have in the past, so we've done the annual plan that's gone to the board for review and that's basically been the extent of the discussion, but if we want to talk about.
Well,
in depth,
and
you can always.
we did a workshop and actually, I'm scheduling a board retreat. We did a board retreat and talked about the strategic plan. And I'm scheduling in November 9th. And I'm gonna let everybody know on Thursday for Angie Taylor is going to do
Great.
some board work with us and it'll be a board retreat. And we could add some strategic plan, but we haven't really, we're in year 2 and it's a 3-year plan. So really we kind of dive in at the beginning of year 3 is when we were
Right.
delayed during COVID.
Sure.
So it didn't happen when it normally would have, but we're in year 2 of the 3-year plan.
Right, but I don't know if the board is coming before the board and we're constantly thinking about the plan and.
And
What
we've
we
tried to
do.
get each of the departments when they come to align what pillar they're in to really, like Mike's team has been great because they're presenting marketing and sales and facilities related to how that relates to the strategic plan. Where are we and what were our goals and what was our, in this annual plan, but constantly tying back. So the board knows that that's the guiding, that's roadmap.
Okay.
I think we're staying this.
Mhm.
So Charlie, are you saying though for this retreat that Andy's gonna help facilitate? I mean, we will devote a segment with catching up new members
Yeah.
to the plan, refreshing it honestly for current members.
We can, when I talk to Angie, it's a board retreat. To really, as much as anything, to get, it's exercises to get the board working together, to really bring the team together. And it's just the board and Angie, and we can actually, I mean, I can add the strategic plan as part of that, so that.
Or
they're
we
aware of it.
could, can we just have maybe
Mhm.
after that meeting, let her do her team building, because
Mhm.
obviously that needs to be done, it may take time, but maybe we have another exec is what I'm saying, sorry to take time with y'all on this, but just to go over that and see how we want to just make sure.
Mhm.
I think it's important that the board remember our duty is to help with executing that, so helping the staff, you know, with that, not getting into the operations, but the policy, the big policy stuff.
There's a key piece to this, I think that, and I think we're preaching to the choir to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
As much as we could have that boiled down tenets of the strategic
Yeah.
plan, because every time one of us 9 meander, and you're
Yes.
having to
That's what
bring
I'm
this in,
thinking.
Mhm.
it's almost like if it doesn't, I don't want to be as rigid as saying it doesn't deal with these things, don't bring it up. But I do think there's a self discipline that we need, and this is where Angie could maybe help facilitate. There's a self-discipline as a board member to say, hang on, that's not what we're on this mission of the strategic
Right.
plan.
Yeah, and we can fine tune that.
Yeah.
Do you not feel like, because staff, I've asked them and they have, during their presentations, have tied it to the pillars of the strategic plan?
I just
Several
know
of
the
them have,
board knows.
But not the
their
brand
role.
new. That-
What's
okay.
the board's role in the
That's true.
strategic plan? The staff certainly, they have to execute it,
Mhm.
but our role as policymakers, I'm just worried that we just all know our jobs. After reading that book, I'm like, everyone needs to know what their job is.
Mhm.
So he recommends you go over your goals and you spend real board time on goals. Like, yeah, there's approval of budgets and there's consent items and but you really, your job is to kind of dictate that big picture of the organization.
Yeah, and you're right, because I have asked staff and they have been showing how they're doing it, but you're right. It does go further. How's the board, what is the board's role? And what are we losing sight of what those goals are and what our responsibility as part of that is?
And we have
So-
so many new members,
Mhm.
that's why
Yeah, good point.
I'm gonna educate us.
Okay, I wrote that all down. Item G, comments, from the floor by the public.
At this time.
We still have no public and no comments. We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.